very excited that the first biscuit of the day is a malted milk. Now I can see, I'm surprised I can see a bit of a squint from Bramus, who is rejecting this, but... oh, I see. Well, he's from Oh, okay. Well, if this is nothing if not a cultural exchange. This event, we all can be all the wiser. So there should be a malted milk biscuit somewhere in that bag for those of you who have them. And of course, this is the perfect biscuit to set up a talk. What can we say about this? I mean, milk is so bland. It's so bland, but once it goes through the sweetening and malting process, it can become so much more than it started. Very much like traditional old synchronous web sites and applications. If only we could find a way to enrich them, make them more unctuous, and perhaps things like a view transition API could do that for us. Luckily, we have a talk on exactly that. So the pairing of these two things just seems too hard to ignore. So I hope you're going to enjoy your biscuit along with this talk. We're very fortunate that Bramus van Damme is here with us today. He works in Google in the Chrome DevRel team there. He does all kinds of work on transitions API, but also kind of scroll-driven animations and lots of rich interactions in the browser. He's also got a background in teaching, and I think you can see that in the way that he always creates such incredible explanations and conveys the messages that are often very technical in a wonderful way, in a really engaging way. He's also kind of got a warm delivery style, which I think matches a malted biscuit beautifully as well. I know I shouldn't match the speakers. No? Tone it down? Okay. Bramus van Damme.
Thanks, Phil. It does work. It does work. Cool. View transitions cranking up to 11 safely, maybe, because I'm about to show you some stuff that you could use in production, but maybe you shouldn't. So, yeah, you can decide upon that yourself. So as Phil mentioned, I'm part of the Chrome DevRel team. I mostly work on CSS-related features. Scroll-driven animations, view transitions, the interaction of scrolling and animations. I really like all that kind of stuff. I think it's wonderful. I'm also a member of the CSS working group. I'm a scuba diver. Any scuba divers here? No scuba divers? Oh, I'm all alone. Good thing is I can teach you how to scuba dive. So come have a chat afterwards. I like to play vinyl records in my living room, mostly for my kids. I've been running a blog for 25 years now, so the 25th anniversary this year, and I would recommend you all to start a blog, because I can directly link me having a blog to me landing my job at Google. So please start a blog, spit out your ideas, and spread them with the world. Now, I'm not here to talk about any of that today. I am here to talk about this thing, which is the view transitions specification. And if you want to summarize it, it basically says hey, we allow you to do seamless transitions between two different views or two different states of your website. And that can be something like this, right? Where you have a state where there are 4 cards on the screen, and then the next state, if you remove the purple one, well, there you have 3 cards on the screen. And maybe you want to nicely do an animation between those. So something like this. If you click the card, it slides out the way. And if you add one, the new one falls in the bottom and all the rest scoot over to the side. That is a nice transition between 2 states of your website. Here's a more complicated one where we have an overview page on the left. So we have a list of cars over there. And then here on the right, we have the detail page. So imagine me clicking on that card and then we end up on this detail page. Well, instead of just having the flash where you click it and then the layout swaps over, maybe you can have something like this, where the card nicely grows into the big card. And as a user, I get this, right? I click that card, it nicely grows. If I hit back, it nicely shrinks back. So there's this nice connection between the previous state and the new state. So I think this is really good for UX, because you can see where things are going. And we mostly see this type of stuff in native applications. Well, you can also do it on the web, because yes, this is a website. This was recorded in Chrome. Demo, by the way, built by Maxi Ferreira, wonderful guy, and also a wonderful demo. So thank you, Maxi, for building that one. Cool. So how do we do it? Well, it's fairly easy. You just need 3 steps. Of course, as everything with CSS, it starts out easy and then it becomes a bit more complicated and it becomes very complicated. But the basics for this one is pretty easy because there's 3 steps. So step 1 is you just have to identify and name all the elements that you want to transition. So that's just you looking at your 2 designs or your 2 states and you just point at things and name them. And you try to see like what is similar between both or what things I want to animate when you go from the one state to the next state. So the first thing that I see here, that is the card, or the box itself. So we have one on the left here, and we also have one on the right. Now, I'm not talking about the entire card. I'm only talking about the black box here, because we're going to do the Photoshop thing. We're going to layer up our design into individual elements that you want to capture and transition from the one state to the other. So another thing that I see here is the visual, right? We have the visual on the left, we have the visual on the right. Yeah, nice. We also have the controls here on the left and on the right. And what's interesting already is that like the controls on the left, they only have 3 buttons. So they have a play, remove and thumbs up control. And then here on the right, you have more buttons, but that's fine. Like it's the controls that you want to transition from the one state to the other. The title also changes, the avatar, and so on and so on. So we keep on naming and identifying everything that we see. Now, one thing that I also find interesting is that the description there on the right, that is not present on the old state, but that's fine. But we do want to capture it because we want that description to fade in. So we want to capture it individually. And then the same thing there on the left is that we have the top bar, because the top bar needs to slide up if we go to the detail page. And if you go back from the detail page to the overview page, we want that top bar to slide down. So we also need to capture it as part of that view transition. So that was step 1. Identifying and naming, but of course you need to do that in CSS. For that you have the view transition name property, which you can set the value to that name and then assign it to that specific element. So here the card, for example, you get the view transition name of the box, which is in both the layouts, but it doesn't need to be the same elements. Like for example, on the overview page, the title of the card that I clicked, that was the H2, but on the detail page, it's the H1. That's not a problem because view transitions go like, okay, the elements like that have the same view transition name in both states, well, we're going to just capture that one, capture the other one, and morph them from the one into the other. So you can totally like morph the button into the image or the image into the texting. That is all possible with view transitions. I think that's great. So we have set up the names. The second thing that we need to do is we need to trigger the view transition. And there's 2 ways to do that because we have same document view transitions and cross-document view transitions. Same document view transitions is when the page itself remains the same. So you're building an SPA basically because you're using JavaScript to update the DOM. And this is the piece of code for it. So you take your method that updates the DOM, but you wrap it in document.start view transition. And that's like the magic thing for the browser to know, oh, I need to do some things and build up a nice view transition. Now, of course, for browsers with no support, we add this little fallback right here. Like if you don't speak view transitions, just update the DOM. Don't bother trying a view transition. But if you do speak it, do document.start view transition. Browser support is there here at the top right. So it's supported in all browsers right now. Of course, some people might be using an older version or whatever, so you definitely do need the fallback there. Progressive enhancement, it's a thing. The second way to do it is that if you are building a MPA, a multi-page application, also known as just a website, yeah, it's a website. The trigger for that is a navigation. So if you click a link from your overview page to your detail page, that is a navigation. But submitting a form, that's also navigation because you're sending data to the next page, so that's also navigation. Now, we won't do this by default. There needs to be an opt-in. And the opt-in is this little new CSS add rule that you need to place on both pages. And with that, you have opted in to allowing view transitions between both pages. It's also limited to same origin navigations, so you can't do a cross-origin view transition, so you can't morph from my site to somebody else's site, but I can do view transitions within my own site. That is perfectly fine. Browser support currently looks like this. It's work in progress in Firefox. Good thing, it's part of Interop 2026, so by the end of this year, we will have view transitions across all the 3 major browser engines, which is amazing to see. A side note with that, this browser compat table, it doesn't really matter because I think view transitions are a nice enhancement. If your browser does view transitions out of the box, great, you get the nice rich view transition and things move around. But if your browser doesn't speak view transition, well, you just get the status quo. You click the link and then the page changes and that's it. Same document view transitions and then cross-document view transitions, 2 ways to trigger it. Now, when you trigger it, something cool is happening because we have named and identified everything there on our thing. And what the browser will do, it will take snapshots. Bless you, by the way. It will take snapshots. So it will take old state snapshots of the old page, and then the browser will pause rendering. It will render the first frame of the next layout, which is this one, and then from that layout, it will take new state snapshots. For example, these right here, those are the controls, right? Those are the controls on the old page, and those are the controls on the new page or in the new state. And what the browser will do with those snapshots is that it will render it in some pseudo elements. So the old one, we call it the view transition old, because it was from the old state. And then in there, the name that you see, that's identifier, because that was a name that we used to controls. And then the new one, obviously, is called view transition new controls. And the browser will render that in a little pseudo tree, and it looks something like this, where you have a view transition and then a group, an image pair, old controls, and so on and so on. Now, the browser, it will render that view transition overlay onto the root, which, because we call document.start view transition, so it's a document scope view transition, so the root is called the transition root, which is our HTML element here. Then it will render a layer on top of that, which is the view transition overlay. And that layer, by the way, will also render on top of the top layer. So it's the toppiest layer in the browser that we have. We recognize the old there. The browser will automatically fade that one out. We recognize the new snapshot there, so that one will fade in. So it will be like a crossfade from the old state to the new state. Then we have the image pair right there, which is for blend mode isolations, because we don't want pixels underneath to participate in the blending. And finally, we have the group, which is responsible for the positioning and the sizing. You're like, oh, position and size? Like, why? Well, if you take a look at our two designs, like you can see, the controls are on the left. The X and Y position is different than the controls here in the second state. And also the size is different. So the group is responsible for that one. So the group will move around from the old position and size to the new one. And while the group is moving, the old and the new one will do a crossfade. So this is our little pseudo tree. Now, of course, we captured more than just the controls, right? We captured like a bunch of things. So it doesn't look like this. Our pseudo tree looks something like this, where we have a group for the card with the image pair and the old new, and we have one for the visual, the top bar, the avatar, and so on and so on. We have a huge pseudo tree that gets rendered on top of our document. And all those groups are moving. And in those groups, all those new and old ones, they are crossfading by default. If you want to see that visualized, I've added a 3D option to the demo. So here, if you click, you see there's outlines on all the groups. So the yellow outlines are the groups that are moving. So if you take a look at the top bar there, for example, you can see that it's moving around. If you take a look here at the description stays in place, but it's just doing the crossfade because there was no capture in the old state. Oh, let's play that back. Yes, let's play it back again. And if you take a look, I think it's at the like at the title itself, you will see that it moves a little bit and it shrinks and it grows and shrinks a little bit, depending on if you're going into the detail or out of the detail page. So I think this is really nice to see what it's like happening underneath the hood. So that was step 2. So 1, identify a name. 2, trigger the view transition. The browser will do like some snapshotting magic for you automatically. And then 3 is you can customize the animations because this right here, this is a blob of very big CSS, by the way, because it's a huge screen. This is a blob of CSS that the browser generates for you when you start a view transition. Now, some part is part of the UA style sheet, but some gets generated on the fly. Like, for example, here we have a view transition group with the name in there, so the name gets replaced by the avatar and the controls and so on and so on. And it will generate like an animation on the fly to move that group across the screen. All the old pseudos, for example, by default, they have an animation name that's set to fade out, so it will automatically fade out, and then the new one that will automatically fade in, all those new snapshots. Now, if I take a look at that, I'm like, I know this. Like, this is CSS, right? So I can throw my own CSS at it, and I can customize everything. Yes, like in the demos that I've shown you, I've added this little piece of CSS where I'm like, hold up. Like instead of running over the default, I think it's like 200 or 150 milliseconds, run over a duration of 2 seconds. So all the animations slow down. That is nice. Another thing that you see, for example, like the top bar, if you take a good look at the top bar, it was sliding up and down. So if I click it, the top bar slides up and then it slides back down. Well, that's not the default fade in, fade out, right? So we want to customize that. The cool thing is, if you take a good look at the pseudo tree, you will see that there was only an old. So if you are going from the overview page to the detail page, there was only a capture on the old state. And then if you are going from the detail page back to the overview page, there will only be a new pseudo. And you can select that one. If it's the only child of the image pair, you can customize the animation. So if there is only a new top bar, if that was the only capture, we want it to slide down. But if there's only an old capture of that top bar, we want it to slide up. And this is just a bit of CSS that you add to it, and you can customize all of the animations. Another one that I really like is if you pay close attention to the visual, you can see that the video keeps playing as you are transitioning. If you click it, the video keeps playing. If you hit back, the video also keeps playing. Now, by default, this wouldn't really work, because if you take a look at the snapshots, the old snapshot, well, that's a stale snapshot, it's like a screenshot. But the new snapshot, that's a live one. So if you were to layer those on top of each other, and then do the default crossfade, you would get this, where there's like a stale frame that is crossfading into a playing video. You don't want that. What you're basically going to do is like, hey, you know, that old visual, I don't care about that one. I just want to like not show it by default. And then this one here on the right, the new snapshot, I don't want to fade it in. I always want to show it. So if you layer those two on top of each other and then run the transition, well, the transition is running, but you don't see the crossfade because you're only showing the new thing. So I think this is really cool that the new snapshots are live. That gives you some opportunities. Cool. So this is how you do it in CSS, right? You say like, okay, the old visual, I'm just going to display on it. Don't show it. The new visual, no animation for you. Don't do the crossfade. Just immediately reveal yourself. This is cool. So this is the TLDR for view transition, right? You identify, name everything, you trigger the view transition, and then the browser will do a bunch of things. It will take before snapshots, pause rendering, update the DOM, take some new snapshots of the after state. It will then construct that whole pseudo tree, set up the animations, and then it will run those animations, and you get the nice view transition that I've already shown you. Some more demos for this, for example, like here I am toggling the gap between a grid, and I'm also toggling which cells a certain item spans. Now, instead of me just changing that value directly, I wrap it in document.dart view transition, and now you have a nicely animated CSS grid. I always kind of wish that CSS grid worked like this out of the box, but like with the view transitions, you can do this. I think this is nice. Another demo built by Adam Argyle, former colleague of mine, where you can see like he added some easing effect to it. So there's like a little springy effect going on that is customized using the animation timing function. Or here's another one which I really like, which is you click on the thumbnail and then the thumbnail grows into the big photo in the dialogue. But pay close attention to the titles here. It's like this nice staggered entry and exit effect. I think this is real. Like this is charming. Like if I see this, I get happy inside. Here's a more fully fledged website. You might recognize some faces on the screen. Jake built it back in the day. But like this is really cool, right? You click on the thing and the list filters itself. But if you click on the thumbnail, it grows into the bigger version. Yes, and then if you click on the next one, then there's like this little movement type of effect going on. I think this really makes a website more lively, I think. Now, I've only, classic iceberg reference there. I've only given you like part of the story because there's a lot more to tell about everything. I've talked about some of these, but I want to move on to more complicated stuff because I want to crank it up to 11. If you do want to know about all of this, don't worry, there's a talk online that you can watch. It's on my blog. And I'm wearing the same t-shirt, by the way, by accident, which is very coincidental. I didn't plan on this. But yeah, you can watch that talk. It goes into all the things like page swap and page reveal, for example, for MPA, for cross-document view transitions. Like really check that one out to customize it. It's really cool. So yeah, back to the demo. So what a lot of people don't know is that Maxi built his demo after this dribble mockup, and pay close attention. Now, there's a second part to the demo. So instead of just clicking on the card and the card growing, come on, play. If he starts scrolling, the card shrinks. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, that's a view transition between two states. Like, yes, it's not controlled by time, like it's driven by scroll, but that's a transition between two states. The two states being this one right here. You have the big card, you have the small card, and then you somehow miraculously transition between those by scrolling. Whoa, cool. I rebuilt this demo, and the difference between the big card and the small card is just a change of the grid template areas. Because this is the big card, where you have like these template areas, so you have like the meta, the title, the more meta description, and so on and so on and so on. But then the small card, it's only just a different grid template. So that's the difference. So if we want to view transition that one, we just need to toggle the class of small on that card, and then we have it. So this is the code. We just toggle the class on the card. Nice. You watch it in the browser. So I did it using a button, and it's like, oh, it's just crossfading. Like, why isn't stuff moving? Well, that is because by default, the browser just gives a view transition name to the root element, the HTML element, so it only captures the root. But what we need to do is we need to do the whole dance again, right? We need to do the first step, identify and name everything. I didn't do that in this demo yet, because we want to have this. So this is a recording of the thing actually working. So if I click the button, I do document start view transition, toggle the class, everything is going. So let's take a look, like how did I do it? Identify and name everything. Point at your designs, start naming things. Hey, yay, we have a card again, we have a visual again, we have a title again, we have a back button again, and then on the left there, we also have a bunch of crap that we don't see in the second state, but we do want to like fade it out or slide it out or whatever, so we do need to capture it as part of the view transition. Similarly, we also need to capture the list of tracks, because as we are scrolling, the tracks aren't just cross-fading from that state to that state. No, the tracks are moving up, so they should be part of that view transition. So we also need to give that one a view transition name. Then we trigger it by toggling the class. Yay, I've already shown you that code. And then we customize the animations. Now, before I show you the code, I want to show you what I built with some help of DevTools. Because in DevTools, you can show an animations panel. And then in the animations panel, you can hit the pause button to pause all the animations. So if I click the toggle button, an entry appears there, and I get this little timeline. And if you did Flash back in the day, we have it back, yes. Now, this is not only for view transitions. This is for any CSS animation, the Web Animations API, CSS transitions, and so on. Firefox also has it, correct? I'm looking at Jake. Firefox also, does Safari have it? I'm not sure if it's in the Web Inspector. I don't think so. Maybe we should ask them to build it in their browser. But like, this is really helpful because here you can already see some stuff going on. Like here is the start of my animation. So it's like this is the whole view transition, but then this element only starts animating a bit into the whole transition, and this one here as well, it ends a bit early, and so on. So what is really cool about this timeline as well is that you can scrub through it. You can click that red line and drag through it, and then you can see all your animations nicely going. If you let go in the middle, it will just pause at that point. There's also a slow down time option there, by the way. So if you don't want to pause them, but like everything, like slow down time, you can just hit the 10% button, and if you click it, everything will go very slow from the one state to the other. I think this is such a great addition to DevTools. Ready for some code? Okay, fair warning, I did have to shrink the code a little bit because it wouldn't fit on the slide, and it's spread across multiple slides. But since we have a big screen, everybody will be able to read it back, way in the back, even I think. So, yes, here we go. What I basically did is I set up a mental timeline. So the timeline that I've shown you in DevTools, I set it up mentally. So I have a base duration of 1 second. I'm like, hey, the whole view transition lasts for 1 second. But then I'm going to chunk that up. I'm like, hey, the description should only run for like 50% of that, so the 0.5. It should immediately start. But the more meta thing, that one should run for like 65% of the animation, but it should wait for 20% into the animation already, like into the whole transition. So I've did that for like a bunch of elements where I want to like run them faster compared to the base duration, or like delay their start a little bit. We set up the duration, the base duration on all the groups, so everything runs over 1 second. And then I also inherit the animation delay because now the UA does it by default, the user agent or browser does it by default. It didn't used to back in the day, so I still inherit the delay from the group onto the image pair, onto the new and the old one. We basically, well, if the view transition overlay is on top of your document, it by default captures all pointer events. We don't want that because we want to be able to scroll and stuff. So we go like, hey, pointer events none. I want all the clicks and all the scrolls to fall through onto the document underneath while the view transition is running. We have our basic keyframes, side up, side down, fade in, fade out. Nothing fancy there. We set up all those view transition names. We go on to the next step where we're like, hey, the card, you just, yeah, we're going to clip you and we're going to fade you in and fade you out. Here we did the trick already where I'm only showing the new state by default and I'm hiding the old state. So we're applying that thing here. And then here comes the nice part where we use mathematics to basically say like, hey, okay, like the description, for example, it should run over 50% of the total time. So we multiply the base duration by that 0.5 that we have. We also set the delay. We set the animations, and then we do that for a bunch of other elements to finally get to the z and x minus 1, because we do want the tracks to stay underneath the card. There used to be like a timing issue where sometimes it would go over it. We no longer need it, but yeah, it's still in there. Why not? So that's the full CSS code for that. And this is what it looks like. I've already shown you this, right? So if I click it, the tracks nicely move up and down. Look at the title there, for example. So the title, whoop, and then if it goes up, like there's a small delay before the title starts animating. So everything is working here. So at that point, I was like, okay, we have this, but how can I make this scroll driven? Because I don't want to click a button. I want it be to control by scroll. Now, I've done a bunch of experiments with it, and I'm only going to show you one version in the end. Like this one here at the top is the one where I try to use pointer events. Those who were beyond Tolerant know that that was a dead end. Don't try and do it that way. There's also one where I actually created a scroll-driven animation, and then I copied the scroll timeline from the one animation to the other ones. It works fine, but scroll-driven animations is not in Firefox yet, so it's not cross-browser. It will be by the end of the year, in Drop 2026, yay. So finally, I resort to this one, which is like way over here. Don't put slides in the bottom right of your deck, content in the bottom right of your deck. The one that listens to the scroll event. Now, what all these attempts and many interesting nights have in common is that commit right there. That commit right there, and that is this piece of code. This is shared across all of those, and this is what unlocked building this. The first thing that we see there is we are awaiting the view transition.ready, and that is a promise. So what I haven't told you yet is that when you start a view transition, you get back a view transition object, and that one contains a bunch of promises that you can await. So you can wait for the DOM content to have been updated, wait for the pseudo tree to have been constructed and the animations be ready right before they start playing. And then, ding dong, I hear a ding dong somewhere. Somebody's getting a message. And then there's also a finish promise to wait when the view transition has finished. So we're using that one, we're waiting the ready one to wait like, hey, wait for the pseudo tree to be constructed and all the animations are like ready to play, but they aren't playing yet. And then the next part is this piece of code, which I totally stole from Jake from this demo. Because Jake built here a gesture-driven view transition, and the piece of code is this right here, where you sniff out all the view transition animations. So you get all the animations that are running on a document, but you're going to say, like, I don't want all animations, I only want the view transition related ones. So you want to filter them. You're going to be like, okay, give me those that are linked to the document, because we started the view transition on the document. So I don't care about an H2 animating somewhere. I want the document animations. And I only want those linked to a pseudo whose name starts with : view transition. And that way we can sniff out all of the animations. And with all of the animations, we can move on to this next part right here, which is this thing. How can we make it scroll driven? because what we do then, what I do then, is that I had set up a scroll listener if we are within a certain scroll range, because it's only when we're scrolling like the top part of the page. So like, for example, for the first 1000 pixels, if there is no view transition, we start on what we're going to immediately pause all the animations. If there is an ongoing view transition happening, we're going to update the animations. And if we are outside of that range, we're going to skip it. So just do some cleanup. And this is the code for the start view transition and pause all the animations. So we start the view transition, we toggle the class on it, we sniff out all of those animations using Jake's piece of code. And then once we have all of those animations, we're going to pause them all. We're going to be like, hold up. You're no longer running by time. I'm now in control of all the time. Also, I have some logic in there, because if we're going from the big card to the small card, or from the small card to the back card, you need to like reverse the animation, so that's also in there. But that is the gist of the code. And then the update animations thing, this is the interesting part, where we sniff out the scroll progress. How far have you now actually scrolled? So we get back a percentage, or like 50% into the scroll. And then the next line, here we are going to map scroll distance to time. We're going to map the pixel scroll distance to the time for the animations, and we're going to update all of those animations like, hey, your current time is now the time that we calculated based on your scroll position. And also, if the playback rate was -1, so if you reverse them, you need to do 1 minus the base duration minus the current time, and so on. But like, that is the piece of code. I also mentioned some cleanup in the previous slide. Well, I skipped over that. But there is also some cleanup. So when the view transition is ready, we're also going to make sure that the card has the right class. Because if you start scrolling up, you want to add the small class to the card. But if while we are scrolling up, we're scrolling back down, well, we still want to end up with the big card. So then we need to remove the class again. So this is some cleanup, and then we do some more cleanup, yeah, and that's it. And here we have it. This is me scrolling through the page, yay, and the view transition is running as I scroll. There's also scroll snapping involved, by the way, to make sure that the thing snaps to either the big card or the small card, and so on. So yeah, this piece of code right here, that one was really, really helpful. It helped me a lot. Even in situations where this, because if you have a colleague who's good with DevTools, they will go like, hold up. Like whenever you are running the animation and there's like the main thread is blocked, like your animation is subject to jank, like it's hanging, like, it's stalled. So here, like you don't want it. So they open up DevTools and they notice by the red triangle over there, it's like, okay, this animation isn't running on the composer, it's running on the main thread. And DevTools will tell you, it's like, okay, the height and the width, we can't run that one on the compositor because it affects layout, so we need to run it on the main thread. And you can see it in the keyframes, right? If you sniff out the keyframes, it's like, oh yeah, 100 pixels, that one is pushing it on the main thread. Thankfully, in Chrome, we have an optimization in place that if the values remain the same across all of the keyframes, we do allow it to run on the compositor. But if the values are not the same, well, we still force it on the main thread. And also the other browsers, they always force it on the main thread at animation. So you might be like, okay, can I just like, if I read out keyframes, I'm just going to delete the width and the height of that one. Yes, that would work, but it would only work if the width and the height remain the same. So if they change, you're kind of screwed. And also, we had a nasty bug until Chrome 137, where the keyframes would give you the wrong information. So you read out the keyframes, and the to keyframe would be like totally invalid. So you would need a workaround for that one. Now, to optimize those keyframes, one of the solutions is like, hey, let's roll our own flip, first, last, invert play, where we sniff out the animation, we get its keyframes, and then we're going to replace that keyframes by optimized keyframes. So we sniff out the keyframes, and you see there's a transform in there in both. So we can determine the rectangle before and after by sniffing out from the keyframes, right? This is the original position where the element was at. We cast it to a Damme matrix, read out the interesting information from it. Then we do the same for the new matrix, although we do need a workaround for Chrome 137. And then once we have those, we can build our own keyframes, where the from keyframe is a translate a scale X and a scale Y, using those before and after widths. And then we're going to scale it back to its normal size. If we then set those as keyframes, we replace them. Hey, yay, we have it running. So on the left, there's the regular animation, but on the right here, this one keeps moving because it's running on the compositor. Nice, cool. If you're wondering about this little line, like, workaround for Chrome 137, how did you solve that one? Time travel. Time travel is the solution to everything. It's true, because what I basically do is that if it's a buggy Chromium, so if it's Chromium 137 or earlier, we get the animation and we set its current time to the end position. So we move it forward to the very end. At that point, we do get computed style, so we get the transform from that. We sniff out the end position, and then we roll back time to the start position, and then we let the animation play. Time travel is a thing. If you're wondering, like, why don't you just do a get bounding client tract? Like, why isn't that possible? Well, there's a difference. Get bounding client tract uses the layout viewport to measure stuff, and in view transitions, they use something called the snapshot containing block, which includes that little area there at the top, which is your address bar. So the coordinate systems use different origins, so you can't just do a get bounding client tract. If you want to know more about this, there's like 2 articles that I wrote about it, me going down the rabbit hole, probably not interesting. So yeah, that was one of the complaints where it's like, oh yeah, but the keyframes, like the keyframes are not that performed. A second complaint I often hear is that interrupted view transitions skip to the end, which is true, right? Because if you start a view transition and then the box moves to like a random position, but if you are rage-clicking the page, and admit it, we all rage-click a page from time to time, it's like you see that the view transition skips to the end. So the problem is that like, the box starts over there, and you want to move it to the top right. Yay! It's going, it's going, it's going. And in the middle, we click. At that point, the box that was originally over there, it will end up over there like, boop, like, hold up. I'm going to run a new view transition from that position to that position. But you don't really want that, right? You don't want it to skip. Like, you want to animate from that middle position to the new target position. You can totally do that by starting a new animation using the Web Animations API. But the problem is, like, this part only ran for 60% of the entire line, almost. So it's 0.59 seconds. But then you start this new part, which lasts for a second. And it's a bit uncanny, because if you try it, you can see, this is me clicking. You can see there's like a little stutter whenever a new animation starts. And that's because the times are like they are not matched to each other. So if I look at this, I was like, I wanted to animate maybe like this somehow. Can I do that? Well, yes, by using the keyframes again and sniffing out the positions and determining like the mid-flight positions, you can get all those intermediary positions. You also know the final destination, where it needs to end up, and then you can create like an SVG in between all of those points, and then you animate the thing along that path, and this is where you can see it in action. So I'm creating an SVG on the fly, and I'm animating along that path, and yes, it's glitchy because we had a bug in Chrome, but it's fixed now. But it's like, ooh, that's a lot of work. That's really a lot of work. Like, you don't want to check the code of that one. That's why it's not public. It's still private. And then thankfully, Kevin Dawtley, whom I met at State of the Browser, Dave's event, was like, why don't you use relative animations? And I go, hold up. So he explained it to me over some beers. So if you're animating from that point to that point, and it's going mid-flight, he's like, okay, cool, you click, and then it needs to end up over there. Don't try to calculate the diagonal. What you do need to do is you need to calculate the new distance from the new position, from the new start position to the new or final end position, but then you need to attach it to the existing box, which is mid-flight. So you basically end up left with 2 vectors. The remainder of the original animation going that way, then you stack the second animation on top. And if you play that one, it goes really, really smooth. And here you can see it in action. Check this out. This is so smooth. I recorded this in Firefox because Chrome is still glitchy for this one. So yeah, work in progress. I'll share the code later on. The key to all this thing is here, composite accumulate. You're stacking animations onto the previous one. That's the key to this whole trick. And here you can see it in action where I'm like shuffling a list of items and it's moving around and so on and so on. Okay, ooh, cool, we're almost at time. I need to speed up a little bit. So yeah, this piece of code right here, it's given me like a lot of nice things to play with. But after typing it and copy-pasting it from CodePen to CodePen, I was like, hold up, like I need to abstract this in the function. Like I just want to have a function get animations. Good thing is I've done that. I've done that for you, and I've made a package from it. It's called the View Transitions Toolkit. You can find it on chrome.dev/View Transitions Toolkit, and it's a collection of utility functions to do all this kind of crazy-ish stuff. For example, here, the get animations. Well, that's now just a call to get animations, and you get all the info right there. Here, a play, pause, and scrub function that you can just import into your code and do it. And then here I have it combined with the scroll-driven animation one, which the code now looks like this. I import pause and scrub, I just pause the view transition and I scrub the view transition based on the scroll progress. And then also the optimize, it's now just a call. You import the optimize group animations, you call it with optionally the names of the groups that you want to optimize. Hey, there you have it. So you don't have to think about it, just import it and do it. So that's the VT toolkit. Yes, woo, little woo. Two more things before, or I think maybe three more things before we go. Sometimes I hear like, hey, the document is not interactive while the view transition runs. Yes, that is correct, because the view transition pseudo gets laid on top of everything, so you can re-enable pointer events on that one. One thing I do want to shout out here is element code view transitions that we skipped in Chrome, shipped in Chrome 147. So instead of calling document start view transition, you can call some element that start view transition, and then the whole pseudo tree that gets generated, which is this one, it doesn't get injected onto the HTML element, but it only gets injected onto that specific element. So that means that while this view transition is running there on the left, you can start a second view transition there on the right, because the rest of the DOM remains interactive. And you can even nest view transitions. How cool is that? It's only in Chrome 147. If you do want to see it in other browsers, please go speak to your local browser representative at the second row there, and maybe, hopefully, they will also work on it. Fingers crossed. There's also an article that you can check out. No worries, I will share the slides online. One other question that I sometimes get is like, hey, can you polyfill this? The answer is no, but it's a spec. And a spec contains like a bunch of steps when you go from state A to state B. So I'm like, hold up, I can totally implement this in JavaScript, like all these steps. So I did that. It's view transitions JS, and it looks like this. And it's glitchy as hell. And that is because I can't do some of the steps that the spec mandates. Like, for example, capture the before snapshots. Pause rendering is also somewhere in between there. Capture the after snapshots. I can't do that. Maybe with HTML and Canvas I can do nowadays. I need to check that. But like construct a pseudo tree, I'm just constructing real elements, so I can't really do that. So yeah, this is not a polyfill. Don't use it in production. Although the week after that I was like, what if I only polyfill like the API surface and not the animation bits? So we take a look at this and like, we remove all the animation crap, but I only give you like the API surface. Totally works. View transitions mock. You import it into your code, you register it, and then you can remove the little check, because now the browser thinks it knows view transition. So if it has view transitions, it will use the original view transitions natively with the browser. If it doesn't, I mock it for you, and you can do all that. Now, to close off, one final note. Are there some Gen Xers here in the room? I am old enough to remember Internet Explorer. And you might be like, Internet Explorer did it first. And yes, that is totally true. Because you might remember interpage transitions, which allowed you to have PowerPoint-like transitions between two websites, like swoops. And it looked like this, where you have the box in animation, like, it does like a box, and then a circle in. And I had to record this over an RDP session to like an old machine somewhere, and then crazy, like, this is cool, right? And how it worked basically is it used those two meta tags that you defined on your page, and then you had a reveal transition with a specific duration, and then you gave it a transition number, and the number was like one of those. So you had circle in, box out, wipe right, and if you added number 23, you got a random effect from like the whole list. This was cool. So I was like, okay, let's bring the old school back. Like, I want to have this in a browser, so I built it. It's IE page transitions. It looks like this. So here I have the box in effect going. Like, it does the box in, and then come on, speed up video, speed up. Yes, I like this, and then I'm gonna set it to. I think I'm gonna set it to random here. Yeah, random. So random in, random out. Oh, how cool is! I love this. Now the cool thing is, I didn't build this from scratch. I was like, hold up. We already have those meta tags, so I just want to add my MPA view transition code to that, and then like maybe load up my script, and that's totally how it works. So I'm reusing those meta tags to control the view transition. So browser support right here looks like this. Not in Firefox yet because it's MPA. Oh, I'm forgetting. Also in Internet Explorer 5.5. Yeah, because they supportive natively. So yeah, all that said, I think I've given you like a lot of building blocks to start building with view transitions. Like you can build these mini micro interactions where you just like retweet, or whatever, like repost. Yeah, repost is the word for it. Or you can build like these more curated experiences where you can see like, okay, the photo is first shrinking and then the content is fading in, fading out. Or maybe even this one right here where you can filter through a list of items, add it to your list there on the right, and so on and so on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to what you're going to build, because I think by adding some sparkles like this onto your web page, we can make a better web. Thank you.
Fantastic. Come on down, yeah.
Don't fall.
Thank you so much. Let's have one more round of applause, please, I think, for Bramus van Damme.